Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, February 11, 2026, time in Texas, about 2 p.m. Some of the things we'll cover today. Oh, and thanks for like, subscribe, and share. A big break in the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping case. A firebird is circling the sun. President Trump taking down the deep state. The U.S. military may use nukes in Iran. And the U.S. military today has closed the airspace over several major U.S. cities. And an Mkultra shooter tragically killing 10 and wounding 25 in Canada. So some of my sources today will be God in the Bible, Patriot subscribers, Canadian Prepper News, Stephen Gardner, How Turner, Lay's Real Talk Plus. So let's get started. So there's been a big break in the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping case. We know Nancy has been gone since February 11 from her home in Tucson, Arizona. So late last night, the FBI released images that had been a technical camera company was able to get some pictures off of the porch camera that Nancy had at her home, and it revealed a male. I would guess his age, looking at the image, to be late 30s. But he was masked, he was armed, he had a big backpack on his back. It's speculated that backpack had material in it to secure Nancy, like a rope or ties or something like that. But I believe, based on my knowledge of facial recognition, that the picture did provide enough of the face exposed so the eyebrows could be seen, the eyes and the mouth, for the FBI to be able to bring about facial recognition of this individual. So that's a big break in the case, and certainly our prayers and thoughts go out to the family of Nancy Guthrie. We pray for her soon and that she's returned in good health. So that's going on. And some people are putting out in space weather that something called a sunbird 2026 object has been seen circling the sun that looks like a big bird. But we have information that this is most likely a comet discovered in March of 2024 by a Polish astronomer, Wurzos, and it's being called the Wurzos comet. What I find very unusual, this is being seen in the southern hemisphere, is that it's believed this comet began its journey from deep space outside our galaxy 1 million years ago. I personally see this as a celestial sign. And we see that President Trump, God, the American people, and President Trump are engaged in a global takedown plan to take down the deep state. And many of us Christians believe the deep state goes all the way back in bloodlines to the fallen angels and the Nephilim. So we do see that going on. I do take this comet, a bird-like comet around the sun, to be a celestial sign. God is on our side. And we have this going on. Okay, so this morning, the U.S. military shut down all airspace around El Paso, Texas, about 6:30 a.m., and then around the New Orleans airport, taking it down from the ground up to 17,000 feet and shutting down all planes in and out, including commercial planes, cargo, and so on. This was so, in El Paso, it was in a 10-mile radius that included Fort Bliss and also extended into southern New Mexico, Santa Teresa down to the Mexican border. So it's coming out. The reason the U.S. military shut down the airspace over El Paso, New Mexico, and New Orleans, Louisiana, is because the Juarez cartel has been sending drugs into the U.S. via drone. So the U.S. military used a new type of technology I was not familiar with, called the anti-drone technology, that could also take airplanes down out of the air. That's the reason the airspace was closed over El Paso, New Mexico, and Louisiana. Now, the U.S. military has reopened the airspace, so it was closed over El Paso 6:30 to about 12 noon today, over Louisiana from about 9:30 a.m. to noon today. So that's going on. Another bringing out of new technology the U.S. military is using. So the NOTAM over El Paso included Biggsfield and at Fort Bliss. And the reason the U.S. military advised the FAA to bring about the NOTAM in Texas, New Mexico, and Louisiana is because the U.S. military could not ensure the safety of planes because the technology they would be using could take planes down from out of the air. But that's been resolved and the airspace has reopened. And we have this. Oh yeah, Mexico. So we're seeing the U.S. military shut down airspace, use its new anti-drone technology in the U.S. This was against a Mexican-based cartel, Juarez. And what's been going on with President God, the American people, and President Trump's plan to take down the deep state? Well, we know that President Trump has stopped oil from Venezuela going to Cuba and also going to China. And the U.S. military has also taken down the ability for Russia in their ghost fleet. So oil is also being taken down in Russia. We understand God, the American people, President Trump, the U.S. military, sanctioning Russia and seizing tankers of oil put out by Russia, seizing tankers of oil put out by Venezuela, and has also cut off oil to Cuba. This is all part of a plan by the U.S. and other governments and militaries around the world to take the deep state down by taking down the economy in China and in Russia and in Iran. because we know that China was also getting 80% of Iran's oil to China, and that's been stopped. So China is having a meltdown, and we understand Russia is much more likely or has already come to the table with a Ukraine-Russia peace plan, because in the past 30 to 60 days, 1/3 of Russia's oil revenue has been cut by the U.S. sanctions. And it's believed soon we will see President Trump negotiating a peace deal that will stand up and will be taken by both Russia and Ukraine. Now, with regard to Cuba and shine bomb, Mexico is also on the chopping block by the U.S. So President Trump has successfully cut oil into Cuba by shutting down oil from Venezuela. And now Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, Mexico, we're gonna send oil to Cuba. Well, hello, Claudia. The U.S. military has in place what appears to be an embargo of Cuba. I don't see the Mexican Navy nor Mexican commercial tankers standing up to the U.S. But hey, you could put that Mexican oil out in the Gulf of America. President Trump can seize it and make it part of the U.S. strategic petroleum collection. So yeah, Claudia, think things through. And we have this. There's been a tragic shooting in Canada, in British Columbia. That's adjacent to Alaska. I believe it was an Mkultra shooter. We saw this individual first killing 2 people in his home. One has been identified as his mother, Jennifer Strang. The shooter has been identified as Jesse Strang, a trans male, who then went to the school in the small area of Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. It was a high school. And the total he has shot dead is 10, and he has wounded 25, and he shot himself at the school. That's why I believe this was an Mkultra trained shooter. And he killed first 2 people in his home, one including his mother. The other person has yet to be identified. Then he went to the school where he shot dead. So he killed 2 at the house. He went to the school. He killed himself. So we have 7 dead, then shot dead at the school. 6 were shot dead at the school. 1 was being taken to the hospital but passed away. Plus an additional 25 have been wounded and are at local hospitals. It's a very tragic event, one that didn't have to happen, and I believe it was put in place by the deep state. So our thoughts and prayers go out to the families. Tumbler Ridge is a very small town, so I'm sure this has hit Tumbler Ridge very hard. And we have this from Canadian Prepper, formerly Canadian Prepper, now his new YouTube site is Prepper News, that the Canadian government is trying to disarm the Canadian people. Now, a deep state-controlled government that's in the process of disarming its people. Would they bring about a massive shooting event? In my mind, Yes. And Canadian Prepper puts out that yesterday the Canadian government made public 2.2 million gun owners in Canada. Name, address, phone number, what kind of weapons they have, and so on. So we see what appears to be a deep state-controlled Canadian government coming against its own people. So that's going on. And we have this. We have President Trump has put in place a new type of savings account that is designed, in my mind, to increase birth rates in the U.S. And we know we've seen a dramatic fall, according to my last video, of the ultimate protest by the Chinese people against an evil and corrupt government. The Chinese people have virtually stopped having children. Now, President Trump, I believe, to increase the number of children in America. So children born in 2025 through 2028, the government will for each child of an American citizen, not illegals, will put into a savings account $1,000. If nothing else goes into the account when the child is 18 years old, there will be $5,000 there. If the parents contribute the maximum amount they can contribute from the child's age of 1 to 18, then the child at 18 would have approximately $300,000. This was part of the new, big, beautiful bill, and it's called the Trump account. Now, questions have come up about President Trump naming everything after himself, wanting to change the name of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. to the Trump Kennedy Center. Also, I believe in New York, there was a high-speed rail. I believe he wants it named after himself. So in my mind, this is all about legacy, baby. So that's going on. President Trump also has stopped a bridge that was going from Detroit into Canada. He stopped the opening, the building, and nothing's going over the bridge. Obama made a deal with Canada. Canada was in charge of building this bridge, which used American contractors and materials to build the bridge. But Obama gave Canada ownership of the bridge, including the part that's inside the U.S., and Obama then gave Canada control over the flow of goods over the bridge. President Trump, Make America Great Again, is saying, no, this is not going to stand. That bridge is never going to be opened inside the U.S. unless we renegotiate the deal that's in the best interest of the American people. That means the part of the bridge that's in the U.S. will be owned by the U.S. The part of the bridge inside the U.S., the trade and flow, will be controlled by the U.S. So way to go, President Trump. And we have this, Obama, a commie dim. So we have this from Stephen Gardner, that we've had two people from Pennsylvania went into Minnesota because they had heard that the commie dim Governor Walz Waltz, who's been to China 35 times, I believe he spent his honeymoon in China, openly appears to be owned by the CCP. These two men from Pennsylvania had heard how easy peasy it is to steal from the government inside Minnesota because it's run by a commie Dem. So they went into Minnesota and managed to steal from Medicaid $3.5 million. The DOJ had targeted them, arrested them, indicted them. They have had a trial. They both pleaded guilty. They haven't had their sentencing yet, but it's believed their sentence will be 4 to 6 years in jail, in prison. And these two individuals are identified as Anthony Jefferson and Lester Brown. And we have this. Two men from the Queens area in New York also embezzled money from the U.S. government, Medicare, Medicaid, $120 million. Now, they had been slow stepping it because they've been stealing this money over a period of 10 years. And both of them sound as if they could be Chinese. One is named Inwood Kim, 42, and the other one, Daniel Lee, 56. But we do see steps being taken to bring to justice people who've been stealing from the American people. We have this, what's going on with Iran? Okay, so the U.S. has brought about this massive plan, the U.S. plus other nations, to take down economically first Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico. You're on the chopping block. Also China and also Russia and also Iran. Now, it's believed that the U.S. is going to hit Iran. There's a possibility that additional strike carrier groups are en route to Iran. But information is coming out that the U.S. military very likely will use tactical nukes in Iran. And you say, why tactical nukes? So tactical nukes, it's not as harsh as it sounds. So you have a missile. The tactical nuke has the end of it with some nuclear material. This nuclear material, tactical nuke, facilitates the penetration of the missile deep into the ground. And we know from Gene Decode that the U.S. military has been using tactical nukes inside the U.S. and other locations around the world for years to take down deep underground bunkers, and also to kill ETs requires a tactical nuke. So that's going on. And we have this. Oh yeah, it's being put forth that the Ayatollah, 87, is heavily medicated and spends most of his time sleeping. Apparently, decisions in Iran are being made by the mullahs. That's a step down from the supreme leader, Ayatollah, to other religious leaders. Yeah, those guys really know a lot about military strategy. And that the Ayatollah has been moved at least 3 times. I believe TOUSITV put that out. So I would be willing to bet that the U.S. military knows exactly where the Ayatollah is located. And we have this. It's believed there are Iranian IRGC inside the U.S. who very likely could be involved with the foreign paid agitators against ICE. So that's going on. And we have this, yeah. So the Ayatollah doesn't appear to be in control of Iran. We have this. What's going on in China? China appears to be full stop revolution. Now it appears that Xi, according to Chinese experts, Xi has been slaughtering his own military, and that the military has split, as has the CCP. Now, I put out that new information that China is controlled by 12 ruling families. Xi is a member of these 12 families, and that from these 12 families also come the leaders of the CCP and the Chinese military. So now Xi is slaughtering his own military. He recently took out 2 top generals. Now it appears he had 2 generals who were supporting him. He had 2 generals take down the top 2 generals, kill them or kidnap them. It's unknown if they're still alive or not. And now it appears that Xi is on the brink of then the 2 generals who did this for him. He's going to have them taken out because, hey, there is no humanity in the godless pagan Chinese system of communism. And the CCP is split into 2 parts. One, the conservatives, hardliners, and one, the reformers who want to see a change in the form of government China has. So there's a split there. There's also a split in the Chinese military. The Chinese military that's not actually a real military, as the U.S. military is, and the military of Russia and other nations. But the purpose of the Chinese military is to protect the 12 ruling families and their control people of the government, CCP, and the military against the Chinese people. So that's going on. A real revolution is going on in China. And I will be very surprised to see President Trump actually make a trip to China in April with all of this going on, because it's highly possible his security cannot be guaranteed by the U.S. military in the case of revolution inside China. So that's going on. And we have this. So Xi, the 12 ruling families, CCP, and the Chinese military are all coming against one another. And it will be a case of who can move the fastest. So, and this is being put forth. China is tied to Cuba, and Cuba could snap overnight. So that's going on. And we have this. Yeah, there are 2. The military is split and the CCP has split. Now, Iran. So we have, formerly in Iran, they had a monarchy form of government with the Shah in control. He passed away. He has a son, Reza Pahlavi, who's been in exile in the U.S. It's believed by many analysts that President Trump is positioning Reza Pahlavi to head up a transition government in Iran once the U.S. brings about regime change in Iran. So that's going on. And the U.S. continues to bring in additional military assets in the area of Iran. Now, for the past 7 to 10 days, there have been many explosions and fires inside Iran. And both the U.S. and Israel came out and said, we didn't do this. It's now strongly believed by many analysts that the explosions and fires being seen and heard and put out on video inside Iran is sabotage by the Iranian people, who are blowing up apartment buildings where IRGC are located, power plants, shopping malls. That's going on right now. So we have another 24 F-22s also going to the Middle East. And we have this, that there have been recently, in the middle of January, intense negotiations between the U.S. and Russia, where Russia and Ukraine were offered a lot of money to end their war that's going on. This has been put on a halt, a postponement, until Iran is taken out of the picture. So that's going on. And we have this. Yes, so recently we saw the DOJ, FBI, not DOJ, well, FBI is part of DOJ. FBI, accompanied by President Trump's Director of National Intel, Tulsi Gabbard, going into Fulton County, Georgia, and taking all of the election information related to the 2020 U.S. presidential coup. And it turns out that their initial preliminary assessment of the election results from 2020 Fulton County, Georgia, shows that there are at least 40 missing boxes of ballots. So that's going on, and we have the FBI taking the voting records for 2020 from Georgia, and also pending is to take voting records, I believe, from maybe Pennsylvania. So that's going on, and all of this economic work we see to take down the deep state is directly related to the U.S. presidential coup of 2020. What's going on in Venezuela? We know that the great U.S. military, I believe the greatest military in the history of the world, took out Maduro. President Trump let stand his second, Delcy Rodriguez. Now, Delcy has been allowing bounty hunters inside Venezuela to kidnap and kill American citizens. And we have from Real Raw News that the U.S. military has taken out the last 5,000 U.S. citizens from Venezuela. So, Delcy, I believe your time might be coming soon also. And we know that President Trump also wants a transition government in Venezuela to then put in place an election where the people of Venezuela actually elect their leader. So that's going on. And we have this. We're Epstein. So Epstein files we recently saw come out have ties to an individual, Lex Warnard, who was the CEO of Victoria's Secret. Now, another tie that's being put forth regarding Epstein to Wexner and Victoria's Secret is that Victoria's Secret acted as a magnet for, to Victoria's Secret is a company that would hire models, and they modeled women's lingerie. So Victoria's Secret would act as an attractor for young women to possibly obtain jobs as models. But it's believed that Victoria's Secret would lure the young women into Victoria's Secret and then ship them off to Epstein Island. Yep, so that's going on. And we have this. CIA. Now, we've heard for years about black ops being done by the CIA, going out and assassinating people and so on. Well, Judge Napolitano brings this information out. He recently interviewed a former CIA operative, John Kirikou, and the CIA operatives are being lied to by the CIA, telling the CIA that the DOJ can okay their illegal activities, as can the president, to go out and do assassinations and so on, and to bring down governments. Judge Napolitano says courts have found the DOJ does not have the legal jurisdiction to okay the CIA in performing assassinations and other illegal acts. So if you work for the CIA and you're asked to go out and assassinate someone, understand that you are on your own. So that's going on. And we have the Super Bowl. Okay. So we've been seeing Super Bowl, the halftime show, for years. I believe this goes back about 10 years that I know about, where the Super Bowl halftime would be satanic witchcraft ceremonies, thinly disguised as entertainment. Well, this year the NFL hired a trans male from Venezuela who performed at the halftime in a foreign language, and I've seen details of what he sang, and they had to present to the American people the songs in a foreign language, Spanish, because the songs were very graphically, sexually explicit, performed by Bad Bunny, while he continually grabbed his own junk. So we see the Super Bowl halftime put in place by the NFL as being anti-America. And now I have a Facebook friend who said, hey, what about next year for the Super Bowl halftime that the NFL puts on the field thousands of Iranian Muslims who just march around the field and chant death to America? Well, in my opinion, that would be in keeping with the NFL's anti-America program that they have displayed for a good 10 years with their anti-America Super Bowl halftime programs. So it's good to be in prayer. especially for Nancy Guthrie and her family, the people in Tumbler Ridge who have lost their young people, and for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.